All right, welcome to episode 61 of Biomassed, our Dust/video game, comic book, Doctor Who, Deadpool, whoever else comic book movie news podcast, and we're generally all about the CCP products. So it'll be all about Dust and CPM candidates tonight. A lot of interesting news, a lot of little things, and a couple of big things out there in the form of the dev blog for Warlords. I think 1.2 is just dropped literally right before we started recording the podcast. So we do have kind of a full room tonight, and we've got a few folks that haven't been on, and that's okay. So what we're going to do is go ahead and dive right into shout-outs, and we're going to start up there with Bait. Go ahead, brother. Give us a quick intro.
Hey, everybody. I'm Aiwha Bait. I'm a director at the Demonic Cowboys and a writer for the Biomassed blog.
Outstanding. And Demens.
Hi, I'm Demens Grimwulff. I'm a director of negative feedback, and that's about it, really. Human being.
Okay. All right. Well played. Dystopia.
Hey, this is Dystopia. I'm a closed beta vet and a CPM2 candidate.
Outstanding. Kain.
It's Kain Spero, former member of the CPM and leader of the Negative Feedback Alliance.
And also a CPM2 candidate along with, I think, Demens as well. Okay.
I don't like it right now.
Yep. I'm xTheSiLLyRaBBiTx, a member of CPM1, a co-host here on the podcast, an editor on the blog, and I'm currently playing Dust.
Apparently he's about to go do some rooftop camping with a forge gun.
He's playing an audio clip in the background, that's all.
It's probably from yeah, absolutely. He's probably got the John Woo tape linked and it's looping right in the background. Okay. Pokey.
I'm Pokey's Raven from OSG Planetary Operations. I'm a co-host of the Biomassed podcast, writer for the blog, and a CPM2 candidate.
Awesome. And Silver Strike.
Hello, Silver Strike 44, Dust YouTuber and avid member of the PC community, I suppose.
Awesome. What corp are you in?
Random Guns.
Okay, gotcha. And Silly Rabbit.
Hey guys, xTheSiLLyRaBBiTx here, director over at Negative Feedback and Logi Enthusiast.
Alrighty. Well, I'm Jaysyn Larison. I'm a member of OSG Planetary Operations on the Dust side. I do occasionally still fly on the Eve side, not often lately, and probably won't be playing Dust for about the next 30 days as I'm getting ready to literally jump station to a brand new location on the East Coast. I'm currently a West Coast guy, so I will have to change all my time zones. But that being said, really glad to be here tonight, and I think we got a pretty interesting show. So what we're going to do is, as per our normal format, we will follow up with Soraya Zell and a quick CPM update. And Soraya, as usual, isn't paying attention to the podcast. So what we're going to do is Pokey and I are going to give his CPM update for him. So, Pokey, I'm going to lead off.
No, I'm sorry. As mentioned, I'm in the game, and you just cost me one of the objectives here.
Go ahead. Tell me that cost you a proto suit. Go ahead.
Don't worry.
No, it's a cheap suit, and I didn't die. I didn't get the installation kill because I was distracted. So yeah, thanks for that. So the CPM update is that we have obviously the 1.2 blog just went down, and we have a meeting actually scheduled on Tuesday. So there's that. I don't know if there's going to be anything particularly interesting or relevant out of it, but that's coming. So we're meeting with I think JC and Ratati on Tuesday. Let's see. Aelns Dene was the only person to enter my summary contest today, or this week, so he wins by default again. And what else? I don't know. Oh, I got a forge gun and there's 2 dropships near me. I'll be back.
He is really working hard to make it sound like he's actually playing, so I will have to commend him with at least a nod of the head that he is working as hard to do that as he's ever tried to give us any CPM update in any previous episode of this podcast. All right, so moving on. What we're going to do is we're going to lead off with a couple CPM 2 candidates. So as per our normal format, we're going to have myself and Bait will ask some general questions to a couple of our guests. We have several CPM2 candidates on tonight, but we're doing about 2 to 3 a show. We're going to have 2 on tonight, and we've already got a couple scheduled for next week. So tonight we're going to have Silly Rabbit and Demens Grimwulff. We're going to lead off with Silly Rabbit. He's been a guest on the show more than once. We always like having him back. He's a good guy to talk to, and we're going to explore a little bit about why he wants to be a CPM member and what he thinks he's bringing to the table, and he can also explain a little bit about himself. So, with that, Silly, you about ready to get down to it?
Well, let's do it.
Yeah, don't ever say that to me in that tone of voice again, please. Okay, so I'm going to lead off with kind of the softball pitch here of why do you want to be a CPM, or specifically here in CPM2? What is making you want to put your name in the hat as a video game politician?
I've been running this game, I would say right at the beginning of open beta. Completely fell in love with the game. Actually walked away from one FPS entirely for it. So I mean, in my day-to-day activities, this is pretty much this and one other game is about all that I run just for fun's sake. I mean, I gravitate towards it a lot. I love the concept of it. I love what it does, and I want to represent it as best as possible. I've done a lot of aspects to the game, competitive and casual, so I think I have a pretty solid grip on and understanding of the game now. Last year I wanted to run, but I didn't feel I was quite ready. But now I feel like I'm on par for it.
Okay, all right. So it's more of a point of you think you have something to contribute to the greater community in terms of how our needs can be served with CCP and vice versa, for example?
Yeah, I'll go into a little bit more detail about it. I mean, like I said, competitively, casually, and I've had the I guess I would say not so much privilege, but more so like community aspect locked down in terms of like I talk to a lot of people in this game, a lot of active players, a lot of passive players that are come and gone, and just in terms of mechanically, I mean, I understand it. I understand what needs to be balanced, because that's really what I feel is still missing from the game is balance, and I want to just push as much balance forward objectives as possible. There's a lot of elements that I feel that I could contribute to being CPM, and I have a great eye for detail in terms of like knowing what needs to really get pinpointed and really targeting that, and not only just taking advice from the community and not so much advice, but just suggestions and seeing their grievances and seeing what they love, see what they hate, see what they feel is OP'd, see what's underpowered, nerfed. I take all of that into perspective, and I look at it, and I've ran almost every piece of equipment, weapon, or vehicle in this game, so I have a pretty strong understanding for it. I'm ready to kind of exercise that a lot more.
Okay. Well, no, I think that's a pretty good starter. So you've been around quite a bit in several different corps, and I know you are an active PC player. So what do you think is the primary things that you want to bring to the table as a PC player in terms of what we see unfolding with Dust?
I was in the think tank that RaBBiTx set up, and I just offered as much feedback as I could during the time when I was leading over at FA, and that really whatever you see that's being incorporated now, that's that was before me even trying to campaign for it. It was really cool that he was able to come and talk to people outside of that of that circle, and that was a lot of the stuff in there is what I like to see, what I would have liked to see, more substance to PC, land value being restored, but not being so simplistic in terms of just turning on an ISK faucet. You know what I mean? Like there's more to that, and I think there's more to explore in that now. And what he has so far in terms of like the command points, the district credits, setting up rating, though I would like to see that a lot sooner. I'm seeing that it's going to be imposed later into the game. Elements like that is something to build upon. I also would like to put a PvE side of the experience into the game as well, that I feel like could still incorporate everybody, whether you're a casual player, whether you're in PC, or whether you're not in PC. You know what I mean? There's still ways to do it. It's just in terms of, is there enough space to do it? Do we need to port before that can actually be a possibility? But that's just something I want to explore. And I've posed, ideas to RaBBiTx. He said there's great, but they're just, there's not enough space. So hopefully with tier side, that'll open up a door, and maybe I could throw back in that suggestion in terms of incorporating a little bit of PvE to PC. Because what he's got going on right now already is going to bring back land incentive, and hopefully bring back that competitive edge in PC that was just gone for the longest time. It was just a gaping hole, looked like an emptiness. And so I'm just looking forward to putting that back in.
Okay. Well, I'm going to toss it over to Bait for a couple questions, and he and I will kind of go back and forth with a couple things, but I'm going to toss this over to my partner for now and let him throw a couple at you, okay?
Cool.
Okay, so Silly, as you said before, you have played every role and run every piece of equipment. And from reading your posts on the forums, I can absolutely tell that. I was looking through and I saw that you commented on just about every topic that you could find.
Excuse my passions if it's a little aggressive on some of them.
In this field, it is much appreciated, and I know that for me as a player personally, I do appreciate somebody who is passionate about the game on that level. But would you say that you're well tapped into the happenings of the Dust community?
Very much so. I squad with as many people as I can. Sometimes there's, not enough room for squads. They're either clicked up or they're full, which is always a good thing to see in the corp that I'm in over at Negative Feedback. But I squad with as many people as I can. I have like late night crews that I run with too. People from Opus Arcana, and also like people from this new corp coming up, Ambush for the Win. Players that there's a lot of pub players, which is cool to see that they're starting to try to get into PC. So that's pretty awesome. And there's, just in longevity wise, like I've been around. I've been around. Not trying to say that loosely, but back from CI days, me and Cross and Jaysyn could attest. But I've been back, from that point up until now. I just kept contacts with as many people as I can, and I squad with them. I love squadding with tankers. And seeing, always seeing where that, what they want to see out of it, because that was actually pulled away from them in terms of that. I'll probably go into that deeper if you guys ask more about that. But, I just squad with as many people in different groups as possible, whether it's a Slayer squad, whether it's a Logi squad, whether it's just a heavy squad, whether it's a tank squad, whether it's any kind of thing. It just, it happens throughout the day. And I play daily anyway. So there's always something going on.
Awesome, dude. So should you get elected, to the CPM2, how do you think, or how would you use your knowledge, for lack of a better word, of the game to better the game in its current state, or if it goes to a port?
From my knowledge that I feel I could contribute, I really want to kind of specify key problems in the game, or whether I wouldn't really must say problems, but just things that can be fixed. Whether it's an exploit, certain weapons that haven't been touched at all. I really have a set goal in mind. I want to touch vehicles. I want to respec back on a certain bit of weapons. Just take a look at those, and also just build upon what's already established and what fits into the realm. Whether build upon better on assaults or logis, or see more out of something out of heavies. But that's all that all is pendant upon where the game is at the certain time, like the meta, because we've gone from say from the start of Uprising, we've gone from really kind of knights and armors to more of a modernized, quicker kind of gameplay rather than just really archaic style. So it just really depends on what the shift is. And we just did a minor tweak, I would say they did, to with the patch incorporating for the logis and the commandos and stuff, and tweaking speed stats on certain assaults. And I feel that there's still a blanket sweep for a lot of things. And what I want to really pinpoint is, focusing on key aspects like the assault sweep. I personally didn't agree with the whole blanket sweep for all assaults, whether it's the speed for the mins and everything. I felt that one suit was a little bit OP'd, and that should have just got tweaked. Stuff like that. I really want to kind of push that home. Like, hey, let's not just hit everything at once. That's usually what CCP does. They usually just smash everything, and then it's either a hit or it's an entire miss. But I really just want to just kind of take that step back and just focus on those key little details, and then just fix that up, because there's a lot of suits that are already fine, but sometimes they get messed with because one suit is ruining it for everybody. Instead of just focusing on that one suit, that's sometimes not the case, and sometimes it's just a blanket sweep of everything.
Hey, Silly, you mind if I ask a couple follow-ups, if you don't mind?
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, just two things real quick. So you had a couple of comments there about sort of the older style of play, or as you dubbed it, the older style of play being kind of an archaic sort of form of play. Do you prefer kind of the faster Twitch-based play, or do you kind of prefer the more tactical kind of set things up play?
I prefer in my opinion, the best of both worlds. I want each race to kind of have its it's specialization. I prefer that scouts be the fastest in the game because they should be. I feel that assaults should be, where they're at right now. I feel that honestly assaults are at a good position. I didn't agree entirely with the blanket sweep of all the stats, but what they did was minimal, and it's still suits are still viable. But I don't want to see just a constant crapshoot of like 16 min assaults because no one wants to go and delve into the Cal assault or no one wants to go and delve into the Galente assault. I kind of want each race to really shine in its role, and it's slowly getting there. I'm seeing it a little bit, but in terms of that, I mean, that's just where I stay with. I don't want it to go so slow back to where it's like super tanked out. You know what I mean? Like that was fun for its time, but we're kind of past that. I mean, there's more diversity in the suit, so I feel that each suit should kind of exemplify its play style and really just kind of focus on that, instead of just being.
I guess my question is, do you feel that you can have both of those things in this game? Because we've basically proven that really well, I say we've proven, but I would offer at least a perspective that little narrow ledge that you have to walk of the quote unquote balance. We CCP / this game, this community, we've never really been able to find that. So do you think we're there now?
Still not there, no. Just from what happened for the blanket sweeps for the assaults, instead of focusing on one suit, they hit the whole thing, you know what I mean? I feel that there needs to be more specification for certain things instead of just, punishing them all or sweeping them all.
I'm kind of with you on that one. So as I kind of pull the string on that one, that was predominantly, I think, what you're referring to, correct me if I'm wrong, is the sort of the EHP versus base movement speed, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the basic curve that they set up, where it started with scouts, logies, assaults, heavies, and as sort of a declining slope in terms of how much or how little EHP you in theory had versus your base movement speed. So I understand that you had some concerns about kind of the way that it was done, but it does seem very a logical way that CCP, i.e. Rattati, laid that out in terms of a very sort of linear glide path of what would be faster and then what would be have more tank, so to speak. So I guess my question is, what would you have done differently than what they did, and what would have been the impacts to like the Logis, for example?
The Logis were actually I agreed with what happened to the Logis and Commandos. I personally can't wait for I guess they haven't added the slot progression for the Commandos yet, but I'm really excited to see that because I've always felt they were super squishy. Logis have really taken a hit in terms of durability. So to see that actually come into play and more evasiveness with the speed, that I couldn't have asked for that more. That was a great addition to the game from what they did. Assault wise, I personally felt that they should have only just tweaked out the min assault. That was the only suit that I constantly saw as a problem in the game that I would see every day, daily. You would see a whole squad run like 4 or 5 min assaults, and then they would maybe have one assault Amar because the scrambler rifle is an issue right now. So suits are either powerful based off of the weapon that might be OP'd, or they might not be used because the certain stats or racial stats are nerfed, like the Cal. There's still a problem with the Cal Logi. I really would like to see something of that. There's still stuff missing. But that's what I would have fixed in terms of that I would have worked on that, just the min assault. I didn't think everything else needed to suffer for what the min assault was doing.
Okay. I mean, it just strikes me though that basically you just advocated for making everything fast. Well, more or less keeping everything fast or making everything faster, which then goes back to my comment earlier / question about, do you prefer base gameplay or more tactical gameplay?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want it to be misconstrued or anything like that. I'm not in favor. Yeah, I'm not in favor of anything being super fast or being super slow, but there needs to be a medium in terms of working on each suit and really kind of deciding on what do we want this suit to do racially, what do we want it to excel at racially, because there's so many, the diversity for the suits there's a lot of them now. So now I think what needs to happen is, and they're doing it, it's slowly happening, but there's still blanket sweeps. What I'm saying in terms of like what they did with the assaults, they just wipe stats instead of focusing on, okay, what suit is the major problem? What is that OP suit? Because that's what usually causes a shift. It's what suit is super OP'd or what is super nerfed. And CCP does extremes. They don't really just pinpoint certain details. They do extreme twists, and that usually leads us in a dramatic path for something else, or you know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with just like it's like hot or cold, hot or cold. It's never like, okay, this is a problem, let's focus on this, let's make this resolved, and then leave everything alone and then move to the next issue. You know, so that's, you know, from the question, I don't prefer everything to be twitch shoot. I really don't like that. I played Battlefield 3 coming up. I played Call of Duty. I hated Call of Duty, especially once I touched Battlefield 3, because I like the aspect of there being a realistic problem to deal with in terms of like suppression. Like that was something that you had to deal with in Battlefield 3. And you really won't get that in Dust. That's not what Dust is about. So what can really be the balance? You know, you don't want to make something too fast. A twitch shooter, you'll get problems with twitch shooting. It's just not enjoyable. People should die and they don't die. The hitbox may be too small. Things could go really south extreme because there's a lot of gaps in the game technically to deal with. So there needs to be a medium to deal with instead of having one thing go one way, because if you do that, because this game is dealt with in extremes, you'll have certain suits accelerate more than they should. The scouts, the assaults, anything that you can kind of exploit because the game is so customizable. You can literally make a suit to your own specific, you know, layout. Like it's that, you know, it's not like a cookie cutter build for the rest of, you know, almost every other FPS where they have like a blanket, you know, gun and you have like a couple of, you know, modules or sites that you could tweak with. In this game, you really can exploit something depending on how you want to go with it. And that's, you know, that's a luxury to the game that I like.
Okay. So, well, let me pass this over to Bait. I think he's got another question to throw your way. Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, silly. The looming question with this CPM, I feel, and from what I've observed, is the issue of a port. You know, will Dust get ported? You know, this year or next year or through 2 or 3 years from now, or just whenever. And I was looking back at your interview on Biomassed.com, and you stated that you are in favor of a direct PlayStation 4 port rather than a direct PC port. I just wanted to know why that was.
I personally feel that FPS belong on consoles. That's just, you know, that's the personal side of it. But I am aware that it might be beneficial to put it on both platforms, or you might have to take a L sometimes as a gamer and deal with what you're not used to, which is PC. If it does go that route, you know, whichever, I'm going to be there. You know, I'll adjust to it accordingly. But I am in favor of console just because it's a direct approach. You know what I mean? It's very accessible. Not to say that PC isn't acceptable or Xbox isn't acceptable, but just coming from, you know, COD, coming from Battlefield, granted Battlefield is on PC as well, I just personally get a better feel out of doing console work instead of, you know, PC. But if we're talking about terms of like business standpoint, it would be better to put it on both. It would most likely be better to put it on PC as well, just because I heard the actual, I guess, text to then move it to PlayStation from PC is way easier from moving it from PlayStation to PC, just from coding aspects of it. So, I mean, I'm in favor of that because console is more maintainable, especially with a low population that we have. PC gaming, there's a lot of exploits that can be had from FPS, to my knowledge. There's just a ton of pitfalls that can happen with that. And we don't have the player base, and I don't think we have people on the other side of the fence who will monitor exploitations, because it can and it will happen when it comes to PC. You can't stop that. I feel it's a direct line from internet to player, and there are a ton of intelligent people who might want to cut corners, and that's really easy averse to doing it on the PlayStation. That's just a pessimistic view. I hate to say it, but you know, that's realistic. I've dealt with a lot of, you know, that kind of gameplay, unfortunately.
Oh no, I absolutely agree with that stance.
Yeah, I hate to have a pessimistic view on it, but that's where it stems from. Honestly, it's just I feel that the PC at this point in the game, if there was as much players in Dust as there are in Eve, I would be in favor of wherever they put it. Whether they did it on PC, I would play it on PC. If it was on console, I play it on that. But because of our population, I feel it's our game is much more containable, and it can be regulated easier on console rather than going directly to PC right now.
Awesome. All right, thank you.
Cool.
Okay. Well, I think that covered quite a bit of ground, Silly. And I know you're a big Logi fan, so I've got to ask you at least one quick question. Can you lay down, at least for me, like I know that we just had the dev blog drop, which we're going to get into, but is there any like one or two other things that you're really looking for advocating on the Logi side of the house in the future if you were to be elected on the CPM?
If I was to be elected in the CPM, I would like to kind of focus on the aspect of giving events for Logis, just for a fun sake. There's never been that for us. It's not hard either, looking at what can be accomplished from being Logi. I mean, all you gotta do is tweak a certain couple of things. I would really advocate for that. I don't want to make Logis too OP. I like where they're going, but I really want the Caldari logistics to be focused on. It's been GIMP for a long time. Right now, the racial stats are geared just towards nanohives. I personally feel that Caldari should have access to all nanites in general. So whether it be injectors, whether it be the reptiles that I would love to see soon, and the nanohives altogether, I think they need to have control over that aspect. Because when I look at Minlogi, the reptile is by far one of the strongest equipment pieces to use. The Galogi has the scanners, and the Amar has the links. Now, if you are a Logi, you know that those three things right there are crucial. Nanohives are just, you can forgive it. You know what I mean? You can not have a suit with up nanohives, especially if it's competitively, because you need scans in the city. You need uplinks everywhere you go, and you need to keep people alive with the reptile. But that nanite injector is just something that I feel that should be more beneficial for the Caldari logistics than any other, because that's, the racial spec is for it. Nanohives just don't cut it enough, you know what I mean? And I would really love to see it,
Well, I guess the last question shot on that one. Do you actually think that nanohives should be the sole buff that they get for their suit?
For Calogi, nanohives?
Yeah.
I think it should just be nanites. Like, they have benefits from nanohives and nanite injectors.
So you wouldn't advocate sharing it across any of the other equipment types, just keep it to needles and hives?
It's touchy, because I do want to I think if you blanket it over to all, I hate using that word a lot, but if you kind of give everybody that access, I think we might regress back to the times where you would only see one or two suits of a certain type on the field. I think the more diversity and the more, I guess, I hate to say it, boxing. I wasn't in favor of boxing in the actual equipment stats, but I like to see more diversity on the field instead of people just going to one suit because they know that suit is the better of the two. I feel the Minlogi still, if you gave that blanket sweep in the Minlogi, I would just go to that the whole time. I wouldn't even touch a Calogi at that point. There would be no need for me ever to do, because I have the benefit of nanohives for my Minlogi, and I also get rep bonus. So you run into a dangerous slope with that. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right, man. Well, I think we're gonna wrap this one up, and then we'll obviously be talking to you later in the show, reference some of the other topics. But we're gonna go ahead and move over to Demens Grimwulff, and I'm gonna turn this over to Bait. He's gonna kind of take a little bit of lead on this one.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So, Demens, if you could just, I guess you gave an intro already. Shit.
Would you like me to give a brief introduction of myself?
Yes, please. Yes.
All right. I'm Demens Grimwulff. I started this character back in May of 2013. I had a character before that, but I didn't really play it that much, and then abandoned it because I kind of lost the login information. I started out in a small corp called the Sound of Freedom, and I moved to Anonymous and worked my way up to director in Anonymous, and basically handled other corps, and was kind of the politician for the group, dealing with day in, day out stuff, like fielding PC teams and whatnot. I then moved on to Perfect Bastards with Heimdallr, which is where I first started getting my taste of Kain Spero and some other people that I now play with. And then eventually moved on to Heaven's Lost Property. Took a break from the game, mostly for some real life stuff, for about a year, almost exactly actually, and then was brought back into the game by a friend, Anon Illuminati, and now I'm a director in Negative Feedback.
Awesome, man. So just to start out with, do you primarily run?
I'm primarily an assault player. I have essentially three alts that I switch between, mostly because back in the day not a lot of us had a lot of SP to kind of do everything that we can do now. So I have Demens Grimwulff is dedicated to assaults and scouts. I have another character that's all heavies, and a third character that is Logi and Tank. Demens now starting to pick up some Logi stuff pretty much since, wasting SP at this point.
Sure. Now to get into the dirt and the grit. I was reading your platform on the forums because I'd never heard of you until today. So it's been a pleasure meeting you. But you said that in your platform you want to provide the commando a real role in the game. What do you feel that role is?
While listening to my fellow court member, Silly, I had to stop and kind of shake my head at one thing, and that was when he was talking about cookie cutter builds. And I feel like right now, regardless of what you play, there's pretty much one or two builds for it. Of course, I'm sure you're going to lead into it eventually, but like shields obviously have a major problem. But as far as the commandos are concerned, I think they're really lost in the sauce, to be honest. I had made a post before, actually another court member had made a post. Heimdallr pointed out that assault should be removed from the game because of the speed nerf. And that commandos can, functionally at this point with an increase in speed, do everything that assault can do, but better. And the commandos got, a little bit more of a slot. One more slot gives them a little bit better fitting. So there's a lot of things going on there. And I think that right now, commandos and assaults are very ambiguous. Assaults are a little bit faster moving, don't have the same damage output, but at the same time, the commandos are a little bit slower moving, which fits into the new playstyle. Have more damage, can stack more damage because they have in my opinion, easier to perform fits to them, and survive for a lot longer, with the reload speed and whatnot. So I would like to see commandos kind of pushed more into a suppressive role, something that, as Silly pointed out, we really don't have in this game right now. Something to provide kind of just behind frontline support, suppression, to keep people down behind cover or away from shooting at the troops as they're pushing forward, whereas the assault should be the faster moving, more up close CQC winners.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. So moving on, also you were saying that you would like to bring back the Logi LAVs and the Logi dropships back. What are the advantages to bringing those two vehicles back?
Right now, I think in the same way that we have, as far as the drop suits are concerned, as far as these cookie cutter builds, I think tanks and dropships are also, to that a very large extent, especially tanks, forced into running very specific modules, very specific turrets, and there's really no rock paper scissors there. I think Logi LAVs, especially, as long as you can nerf the rep distance that those things had, will provide a more tactical feel to the actual map, as well as Logi dropships. If this is the way that they want to progress, I think the Logi LAVs and the Logi dropships are a necessary tool to provide true tactical advancement on the battlefield, at least in regards to vehicles.
Okay. You also have said that the Gallente lag facility, that infamous socket that causes massive frame rate drops for most players, you said that, quote, it will be gone from all playlists until an actual workable solution can be put into the game. Now, this has been a major topic of discussion, whether it be on the forums, in-game, or even here in the Biomassed Skype channel. And you are, if I'm not mistaken, from everybody I've looked at, one of the first candidates to actively state that you will attempt to resolve the issue of this specific socket as far as having it removed or whatever. Why do you think that the other candidates haven't done the same thing, even though they continuously complain about it?
I don't think it boils on top of people's minds, It's kind of one of those things that's in the ether. Like every time you log in, you you go to play and everything's fine. It's fine. And then all of a sudden you get to this facility, and I know there's a bunch of people in F that are protesting that map on purpose back out, just because, not because they themselves lag on it, but because there's a lot of members of NF that have major problems with that map. And personally, I have no issue. I haven't had an issue playing that map since it came out, actually, except for PC, where it turned into like the most boring slideshow I've ever seen. But I think with this many people, as far as the population is concerned, that have problems with it, it needs to be addressed. I'm happy that it's out of PC, but at the same time, we're still torturing the players that have issues with it, loading in. It took them a month to get rid of the MCC map that was causing people to crash out of the game and turn layer out. And this thing's still in there. I think they need to be a little bit more proactive with that and listen to the community. I took a lot of time when I made my list and thought through everything, so that was one of those things I wanted to include. I had it on the top of my head, and I put it in there.
Awesome. Well, I know I can personally thank you for for putting it on there. Now, I've got one more question for you, then I'll pass it on to Jay. As I said with Silly Rabbit, a port is big on everybody's mind in this CPM election. What would you like to see the game ported to?
Personally, I would like to see it ported to the PS4, and I have a couple of reasons for that. Actually, funny enough, I had a discussion with about 5 people this morning, and about 10 total, coming in and out of the channel, of what they would like to see this ported to. And my opinion is that consoles will offer a bigger fan base for FPSs than PCs, for one. Computers are amazing. I got 2 gaming rigs myself. My work was tricked into buying me a gaming laptop so I can use that for gaming. And then I have a gaming desktop as well. And they do a great job, but as far as competitive FPS, I don't go to those consoles or those, devices of choice. I go to a console. I think CCP has a very good relationship with Sony, so I think sticking with this Sony relationship would be beneficial for CCP and everybody that plays this game in the long run. And to be honest, all in all, I think the PS4 will just be a better system with the number of people that are playing it, the graphics capabilities, the memory capabilities. I think it can easily handle it looking at the system numbers and all the numbers that are coming out as far as 1080p at 60 frames per second from much more demanding video games.
Would you settle for a PC port if CCP decided to go their route and abandon the console altogether?
Wow. I would hurt. I might cry a little bit, but I would definitely play it. I think settle is the right term in this scenario. As long as it moves to an x86 platform, to be honest with you, I'd be fine with it. If it moves to Xbox One, then I'm going to go buy an Xbox One. That's the sad fact. So if it moves to PC, I'll definitely be on here on a PC.
Awesome, man. Well, it was nice getting to know you a little bit. So thank you for that. I'm going to pass it on to Jaysyn. I think he's got some questions for you.
Yeah, just a couple of real quick ones, man. And this is a little bit because we haven't had you on the show before, so we wanted to kind of explore a little bit more with you. You said you run primarily assaults, and you've been kind of dabbling SP into a little bit of everything right now. What's like one of your go-to setups in the game, just for general purpose use?
Well, I have done the rest of the stuff on other other characters, so I can talk about my heavy builds. Mostly my heavy builds are all armor stack, but that's neither here nor there. As far as my go-to on my main is Apex Caldari Assault, because I'm a masochist, and a Mar Assault because it's the strongest assault in the game, or at least as far as DPS output. You can kind of quarrel over the bits there, but those are my two. And of course, I dual tank the heck out of that Caldari Assault.
Oh yeah, no, I'm absolutely sure of that. Okay, so that just kind of gives us a little bit of idea, just kind of what your normal play style is. Now I'll kind of pose you a question I posed Philly earlier. Where do you kind of fall in Twitch based versus tactical shooters? What would your preference be if you were laying out design guidelines or informing the design guidelines as they continue to iterate on Dust?
Well, I kind of briefly mentioned it before, but that was a part of the thing that had me disagreeing with Silly during his interview. I came from COD, Call of Duty, to be completely honest, so I'm very familiar with the Twitch-based shooters. At the same time, I've dabbled in Battlefield, also because I'm a masochist and I do not like Battlefield at all. I think it has a lot to offer, but it's just too slow for me. And I think the one thing that Dust has provided the FPS community, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get back to your question in a roundabout way, but they provided this, I think, perfect backbone for an FPS with a very poor implementation up front as far as like all the bugs and the balancing issues that we've experienced throughout the years. But they've been working on it. And I think Dust combines good elements from a Twitch-based shooter and good elements from a tactical-based shooter. So I would like to maintain a good balance between the two. But I think if we're going to be moving in this tactical-based direction, like Ratatati said, and I'm all for it. I think we need to provide real tactical solutions to the problems that the game has. I don't think we're even close to there yet. In fact, in my experience, even today, PC is still very much Twitch. There's a lot of strategy to it, but as far as one-on-one combat, it's Twitch. As far as taking a point, it's still Twitch with strategy coming in. But I think there's a lot that can be done as far as strategy and tactical deployments. I don't think we're there yet enough to call this game tactical yet, but I would like to get it definitely more to the tactical side, probably 60-40 as far as tactical versus Twitch.
Okay. No, well, I appreciate you kind of not so much quantifying it, but kind of letting us know where your perspective is on it. And just a quick one. This is one of the things I'll probably be asking a lot of the folks that are relatively new to the show in terms of the CPM candidacy jazz. One of the things I observed, at least in this last CPM, and really with the CPM 0 guys before them, and with the CSM on the Eve side, is you can elect 7 people in, or however many people you bring in. Like Eve elects, I think, like 14. But you're always going to have some attrition of those folks over the year for a lot of different reasons. And I think we've had a couple of infamous cases here in Dust where some folks got elected and then effectively bowed out, quit, walked away, whatever. So my question to you is, one, if a little bit about your personal life. Are you a college student? Do you have time in your real life to actually consistently put some time into helping out the Dust community? Does that kind of make sense? What I'm asking?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm about to be actually next week 31 years old. I have a Monday through Friday job, 8 to 5. Off on the weekends unless I get called out to work. My job's very lenient, so a lot of my posting time and reading time, as far as the forums are concerned, are during the day. I usually slot about an hour and a half to read the forums when I get home, and then I try to get on Dust to play. So I'll definitely have the time to dedicate to CPM. I have a bunch of ideas as far as like getting back into the community and stuff to do, as like posts to make and whatnot, that I've been kind of rolling around in my head during my free time too. But yeah, as far as free time, it's not going to be an issue with me.
Okay. Well, no, and I tell you what, Demens, I really appreciate you coming on the show and having a good chat with us. We're going to go ahead and kind of call this one good, put it in the can, and we're going to slide into the rest of our show, which is a much more open forum for everybody else. So again, myself, Bait, Demens, Dystopia, Kain, also running for CPM2, xTheSiLLyRaBBiTx, Pokey, also running for CPM2, Silver Strike, Silly Rabbit. So we're all up on the net right now, and the first thing we kind of wanted to put out on the table was a little bit of discussion about the patch notes that literally just dropped, probably 15 minutes before we went on the air tonight. And these are the infamous, I think, 1.2 patch notes. There's a lot. They cover a lot of kind of big sweeping things in there, but I also noted that there's less in the way of actual numbers and quantifiable data than you sometimes see in some of these patch notes, which I'm sure we can kind of touch on a little bit. Give me 1 second. I'll pull it up, and then I'll kind of give us a quick recap of the highlights. And then it's sort of a free-for-all. We'll jump in on whichever pieces you guys want to attack first. Okay, so it looks, well, the big thing looks like they're dropping the Planetary Conquest 2.0, which I suspect would be a large chunk of the patch itself, along with the quote-unquote vastly improved user experience with new progression system. The PC piece, I noticed that there are basically no data or numbers that I can see in the dev blog. The UI and the progression system, they kind of go into a little bit, which looks like kind of almost an easier information system if you're a newer player on how do you skill into certain things, or what should you skill into, should always being a dangerous word in this game. A skin viewer, which I'm a huge fan of, because right now you can't see you're buying things sight unseen right now in the market. The skin conversion initiative, where they take older BPOs and then convert those to skins and BPOs, basically splitting the paint job and the actual frame, the suit frame out. So that looks like that, depending on how that goes, that could be a big boon to people that have skins from way back in the day.
Quaif everything.
I do not see the Sever suit at all in this.
Yeah, they don't have any of the old school ones yet.
Yeah, they're not all in here. Just
something interesting to note, though, is if you look, the Logis and assaults are not differentiated, and I know some people absolutely love the way the Logi skin is different than the assault skin.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Oh my. That was not directed at you personally, just whoever you were like mythically quoting. It's okay.
I haven't actually bought them, so
yeah, it's all good, man. The let's see, drop suit slot progression, which is huge, and we have talked about a lot, and I think that's actually probably the most outside of like the PC part, specifically one of the more impactful pieces in the day-to-day life of a Dust player. And then they talked about the 3 new squad types, which we're going to save for a little bit, so that when Kain Spero starts to foam at a mouth like he's got Tums in his mouth, we can kind of keep that under control. So real quick, guys, what jumped out at you the most on this one? Just open forum for folks.
The changes to slot progression. It's something that I've been harping about for a long time. I think it's fantastic. It's exactly what I've wanted. We talked about it in length, so I won't get too much into it, but I think it's going to be great for new player experience and veteran experience at large.
That's huge. So huge.
So yeah, I mean, awesome. Basically it made standard suits Apex suits for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, and this way, and only that, a lot of people have been kind of complaining about where Apex suits land to kind of the scheme of things. And in this way, it kind of, the big advantage for the Apex suits will still be bandwidth in terms of equipment, especially for Logi suits. But that differential where people feel like, oh gosh, if I don't have an Apex suit, then I'm going to be getting creamed, you'll have the basic suit that can run that. You can run an advanced suit and, get that same kind of slot layout benefit. Without necessarily, and not only that, with the advanced suits, you'll actually be having more fitting space too.
Actually, did they specifically say that bandwidth was going to still be tiered?
You know what? They haven't specifically mentioned it. That's actually good.
It would not surprise me that if everything starts with proto bandwidth now.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. Not mentioned, then it's probably going to stay the same. But you never know. We'll know patch day, I guess.
Here's
Yeah.
I don't think the Apex is going to be in a bad spot though with this, and I think it kind of really just makes itself like a standout now in terms of like factional gear for sure. I mean, if you run Eve, you know that there's the standard, there's factional, then there's Tech 2, then you know Tech 3, and so on. So I mean, it kind of finds its place, I would say, in this game in relation to that a bit.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, factional gear in Eve
Barely
though,
though, barely.
is a half a step up, and then usually a side grade in addition. So it is better than standard gear or Tech 1 gear, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
The one problem I've always had, at least fitting my Apex suits, is since it's very close to the basic stats as far as like CPU and PG is concerned. Like the suits, some of them will have a little bit more CPU and less PG, and some of them have a little bit more PG than CPU. Is that for instance, like the Cal Assault always runs out of PG before it runs out of CPU. Like I think I have one Cal Assault that has almost 100 CPU, and no matter how I rearrange everything, I just can't utilize that last bit of CPU. So like when I go to fit my Apex, I always feel like I'm hitting a barrier. And the one thing I used to like running back in the day was always my Dread suit, just because it gives me a little bit more of ability to learn how to utilize my suits better and utilize the field and what I see before me to stay alive. But now I feel like I can run other options than just, Apex or Proto. I can, toss some advanced stuff in there without hurting myself too bad.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a fair way to put it. I mean, right now the Apex suit, I'm not really. I mean, other than the fact it's a disco skin, I'm not sure that it truly gives you a lot of other advantages. I mean, from a cost perspective, it's pretty nice because it is a kitted out suit, and you can do some things with it in terms of cost marginalization. But I knew the minute that when they put that Apex suit out, that eventually we were going to get here. It just, depending on how long it was going to take us to get to this point where everything was running the exact same layout in terms of slots and all that kind of jazz, it was just really going to be governed by CPU and PG. So I think it's a good change. I am interested to see what they're going to add to the Caldari, or to the suits, to the Apex suits that gained or that gained and lost slots. What they're going to add and take away in the game, if that makes sense.
I will say this, and after looking at the Amar, I bought the Apex Amar, and I will say it was probably completely not worth it. So what I'm seeing is they're adding a new low slot. They're adding 5 lows, and it's still going to retain 3 high and retain 3 equipment on it. So it's probably going to be useful now to me personally to actually start using the Seraph suit, because I mean I really didn't find a use outside of the Apex Shaman, which is the Min Logi. The Gal Logi is actually something that I probably wish I would have got, but now that I see this new slot progression, it might be viable to use the Amar Logi now.
Yeah, the Gal Logi and the Cal Logi Apex suits, like,
yeah, the Apex
dog balls.
Yeah, you kind of run with that problem that you got in the initial. We all like have that. I guess the standard suits were just not quite up to par, like the Cal Logi, the Amar Logi, and even the Gal Logi to a degree. But the Min was always good from standard to
that one is by far the best Apex Logi suit, like far and away.
Well, it was honestly, in my opinion, it was the most sound suit they've made in this game. It's never needed any type of true makeover. Like the suit's always been reliable from me starting this game like almost 3 years ago. I've never not had a reason to run that suit. Like it's always been the suit that I knew was good from standard to proto.
Nah, I'm with you. Hey, Demens, what do you got, man? You had something on this?
Yeah, I was just going to point out that the one thing I like about Apex suits, or any like pre-made suit that CCP releases, is that it kind of gives us some insight into this, sociology behind the makers of the game and like what's going on and psychology behind everything. And the one suit I like to wear as far as my favorite is not particularly good looking. In fact, I think it's the ugliest suit in the game, to be honest with you. But it's the Remnant 9 Minmatar Logistics suit.
Oh, and so cool.
I think it's ugly. But anyways, I digress. Like when that thing came out, it was literally unable to be fielded. And it showed that CCP had a major disconnect between how to play the game and, what each suit was meant for. That suit had no shield extenders on it. It had no armor plates on it. It basically went into battle with just under 300 EHP. For some weird reason, it had profile. What was it? Profile. Oh man, I forget. Just like the thing was such a hodgepodge of badness that it was hilarious. And when I started looking at the Apex suits, some of them don't make sense either. As far as like Harry mentioned, the Logi suits, like why would they do this? And I think that's one thing that I would like to, at least as a CPM, provide is a better perspective on like how people play this game. What these suits are and how people actually use them.
Yeah, I mean there were some of them. I remember before the Apex suits came out, there was a very short. There's a burst of focused feedback that happened with CCP and the CPM on asking for feedback on good good setups using that level of CPU and PG. Some of them definitely better than others. I will say this about the Apex suits. I do like the concept. I like the idea of them. But I also think what it does is it highlights very, very clearly in very stark manners what works well and what does not work well for each of the racial kind of suites of equipment. If
Absolutely.
And I would offer that there are some of them that are clearly stand out in a pecking order. We could probably all, like right now, go through each one of the class of suits in the Apex, and we could pick out real quick what's the number 1 and what's the number 4, with a little bit of discussion about what 2 and 3 is. And that's where I think that's where, if there's some feedback that we could put out on the Apex suits, and really how slot side, for lack of a better term, works, is like where are the racial themes or the design themes that we can lay in that makes things more well-rounded from a racial aspect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's. I'm sorry, I'm still stuck thinking about the Remnant 9. That just the color scheme is hideous. But yeah, it's absolute truth right there.
Okay. Hey, Silver, what do you think, man? What's your thoughts on the Warlords 1.2? And pick anything you want. If it's slot aside or any of the PC changes, what are you most interested in?
Just something I've kind of taken note of here: the commando and the logistics slot changes. The Caldari actually logistics. It looks like they got it wrong on here. They have it listed as 5 high, 3 low, 4 equipment, like it is now, and then it's gonna remain like that. I don't know if they just got the 2 numbers switched and they're gonna remain 5 high, 4 low, and 3 equipment like they are now, and or if they're gonna change to 5 high, 3 low, 4 equipment. But it's just I see it's wrong on here now, so I'm not sure where it's actually gonna end up. Then also, just the commando. I've been running. I'm not full on commando, but I've been running commando quite a bit lately. I've been told it was my claim to fame in PC at one point, which I don't think it is, but I've been told that. Anyways, I think that'll give it a good buff, especially with the movement speed. Commandos might be pretty much a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield, and we'll just have to see.
No, I think there's definitely something to that. Oh, I'm sorry, Pokey. Please go ahead.
No, it's fine. I was just saying I've really been enjoying the changes, the movement on the commando. It feels really good, and I think this shift in the slots is going to be just the right thing to make them feel just right. So I'm really looking forward to that as well.
So I'm just curious. You hit on something, Pokey, I wanted to touch on. It's kind of a squirrel to chase, but the strafe changes in conjunction with the movement changes. Like, how do you think that is going to go over, guys?
Well, it's no secret that I'm not a huge fan of crazy strafe speeds. I don't like the idea of dodging bullets back and forth. I think it's dumb. So I think bringing that a little more in line has been a good change, and I think that the overall curve, or at least the concept of effective HP to speed, has been also a positive change. I mean, I know some people don't quite agree, and I think there might be some additional tweaking needed, but I think overall it's been a positive improvement to the gameplay, so I'm enjoying it thoroughly.
One thing that needs to be said is looking at that, especially with the tier side. before, when Commandos came out, I spec'd into Minotaur Commando, and at no point could I ever run the basic suit because it had no highs and no lows, and I always felt like extremely naked and like I was being punished for running that suit. So now they'll have 3-2 throughout all the levels, which is a great thing.
I kind of wonder for the Apex suits, are you gonna end up with empty slots on like the Amar Apex, or are they putting in a random piece of something in there?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of curious about. Like, if they ended up adding that fourth equipment slot to my Apex Scout Lodge, are they going to put another bullshit hive in there, or something that's worth a damn?
Chances are they'll forget about it, and then it'll come out, and they'll go, "Oh shit, we forgot to actually do that," and then they'll fix it like in 3 weeks.
Empty slot, yeah.
Yeah, no, I fully expect it to happen.
That for the Commandos too, right?
This is
Yeah, and it might be interesting to see, since they are reducing the number of low slots for the Caldari Logi, how that'll work out as well. Like
I think they mentioned that they were increasing the CPU PG. I think
for the prototype, but I think the standard and advanced remain the same. But I was more speaking on the Apex suit for the Cal Logi will be losing a slot, and I'm wondering what module will be losing in that low.
That is a good question.
Yeah, I think there might have been a typo, considering that both sides are exactly the same. So let's cross our fingers on this one, guys.
Well, I mean, if you look at the methodology, they're basically making the Commandos have the same slot layout as the Sentinels, and making the Lodge have the same slot layout as the Assault. So I can only assume it'll match the Assault and be a 5 high, 3 low, and then 4 equipment slot.
Yeah, I did ping Cross, and he indicated that they were getting a fourth equipment slot. That was the actual scoop.
You're talking about the Kalaji?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So now the interesting thing is what I've noticed on like Logi suits, like the equipment doesn't scale very well. Like Proto works very well, and then everything else drops dramatically through the floor in terms of its efficacy.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to work out.
You got a couple outliers to that though, like compact nano hives. I mean, actually maybe the only outlier though.
I mean, if they got 4 equipment slots now for the Caldari, I think it'll be cool to actually make a fit. I had a rep hive fit that I used to run. Now that there is 4 though, instead of running with 3 on the equipment slot, I can run 4, so I can run basically like 2 hives, Rikiomi or Alitech, and then just backdoor with a needle. And I mean, an nano injector and a reptile now, so I actually couldn't use the suit to sustain or hold the actual position and set up a hub. I used to have to like do that, but just the Min Logi or the Gal Logi, have to cut corners and make sacrifices just because I prefer 3. I prefer 4. Equipment slots than 3. I just feel 3 is too. Can't get a lot done, but you can try.
Yeah, no, I think it's. I'm with you on that. I've raged about that quite a bit in the past. Is like what the usage rate of the Cal Logi suit is for actually trying to do Logi work. It's
if they made it 4 for 3 suits, they might as well make it 4 for all of them. To be honest, it's just let that CPU and PG space dictate on what sacrifices they have to make. But if they can do it for 3 suits, I think they might as well just go ahead and throw that 4th equipment slot for the Myology as well.
Yeah, honestly, I don't care if they want to keep the sidearm. I'm.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That's totally fine for me.
Yeah, that's the give and take. So yeah, okay, then I could deal with that. Then never mind. Forgot entirely about the sidearm.
Don't touch my sidearm.
Yeah. Okay, I take it back. What I said. Retract my statement. I forgot all about it.
No, I mean, and that's cool. I mean, I think that works really well. I would tell you that like my big thing on this is I really think they need to. I am a huge fan of how they've done slot aside on this and how they're laying it out. I'm a little bit skeptical about the speed and EHP curve that they've laid out, only because I still think that when they don't touch things like regen and other factors that are usually part and parcel of those kind of performance curves, I'm a little skeptical of it right now. But I like what they're doing. I think to me though the biggest thing is what are they going to do with all these frame suits in terms of like bonuses? How will classes balance against other classes, and then how will the races balance inside the classes? Because and Cross mentioned this before, is like this is the one thing that I truly wish that they would in somewhere lay out is what is the overall design philosophy behind these? Because I can poke holes in some of them. Some of them actually work very well. They're very well knitted together in terms of how the scouts work in a given race, like how the scouts work versus the assaults versus the heavy, the commando to a degree, which is in a weird spot. Some of them work very well. Their weapon and equipment that is racially specific works very well when you take them in total. Some of them do not. And that's where I'm kind of curious about how they would, what the overall design goal for all this stuff is, because to me it's really more about what are the bonuses on the suits themselves, not so much the slot layout is obviously very important and it drives a lot of things, but it's how your suit uses those slots and how your suit interacts with weapon systems or equipment systems and things like that. That's far more important to me.
I understand. On a side note, I also saw Rattity post somewhere about making the officer equipment kind of like a optimization option for suits. So I saw that the other day. He wrote about.
And can you elaborate on that? I'm just trying to follow on.
I forget where it was. I'm gonna try to search it up. But basically, he was talking about adding fitting like an optimization actually on the suit, like what you have on weapons and. In the realm of where
you mean adding skills to the skill tree?
Well, skills to the skill tree in terms of like fitting optimization. So you can't just be level 5 with a min logi and you can use the logi all of a sudden. You have to be level 5 and level 2 on fitting optimization to actually, not optimization or oh god, I just had like a brain fart. But basically, what stops you from using officer weapons is that little selection proficiency. There you go, proficiency. He's talking about adding that possibly to suits, so that way officer suits you're required to be like level 2 with the proficiency in the actual suit itself to use officer suits.
So you get something like rep tool proficiency or something on top of the rep tool skill?
He didn't actually go into detail about that. It was just in terms of just for using the officer suit in itself. I feel that if you're going to add that, you might as well add a more of a benefit for race bonus, if that's the case. He didn't go into that detail, but he definitely was talking about making it more difficult to run officer gear because, let's be honest, they are becoming more and more frequent in the game. I myself have a crap ton of officer gear because, it doesn't go anywhere except to the next person. It doesn't get destroyed. It just, someone else picks it up as salvage. And on top of that, your board barge manifests it and you can get it from strong boxes. So there's going to be more and more officer weapon and suits as time progresses. So I'm pretty sure that will become a problem that they might try to tweak off a bit because it can be exploited.
Okay. Well, let me kind of change gears a little bit. One of the other things here in the 1.2 was the updated PC Planetary Conquest, and again, it doesn't go into a whole lot of detail about it, but it says we're going to get
it. We're flying blind here, to me, it was always very important to try to get at least a 24, 48 hour notice before any major PC changes, because these are you got people with huge logistical networks and all this kind of stuff set up to try to deal with this. You got people with like 30 plus districts and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I know some people are like, well, boohoo, big landholders, but at the same time, that's still a lot of invested time and stuff, and not only that, even the new players should be able to have a chance to kind of plan it out. It seems kind of crazy that you're going to be kind of hitting the ground running. And so basically the people who log in first after downtime are going to be the ones who see actually what all the CP costs are, rather than everyone just kind of being able to sit down and relax, kind of look over the numbers. It's going to be this kind of rush.
Gold rush, dust rush, whatever you want to call it. It's going to happen though for sure. People are already they're coming out of retirement or they're, getting the guys together and talking about it. It's like coming a thing now for sure.
Well, I think it's nice because it's CCP trying like actually finally democratize PC. And I know it sounds weird coming from somebody who was part of the Big Blue Donut, and then before then, I forgot to mention I was in Ancient Exiles also. So I've been in corps that held 30% of Molden Heath and got to experience what nonstop PC was like. The one thing, and you can even fact check this if somebody somebody feels bored enough to do it. But going all the way back then, when I was in Ancient Exiles and Anonymous and even HVLP, my post on the forums was in discussions in the game was that I would much rather prefer having corps only hold 3, 4, 5 districts so that everybody can get the feel of this in-game content. I think the one thing, at least from my perspective, that PC offers is kind of this great experience of pitting your strategy and your player's ability to take points in a competitive arena, and then they can come out feeling that victory. Like at least at my age, anybody who's played video games back in the day, when you overcame like a huge puzzle, you always felt rewarded. And I think that's missing in a lot of video games nowadays. When you play stuff like Dragon Age, for instance, you just don't feel as rewarded as you do when you come out of a PC victorious with all your friends there with you. And I think seeing that, it's actually, I think it's going to breathe new life into this game and to the people that play it.
When you say basically, like, if it was in a perfect world, you would have no more than 3 to 4 districts of court. Like, do you not feel that, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but do you feel that, it has to be fair for all to enjoy it? Because I'm more of a fan of, you get as much as you put into it. It's a meta aspect to like the Big Blue Donut. Like, as crazy as that was, why should that not be attainable? And it was attainable. It's just, I feel that the problem was in terms of the mechanics of the game. Like, it was just too cookie cutter in terms of like, oh, we get a crap ton of ISK. That was like the only benefit to doing it, is like you could get super, super rich, but that was the only benefit of holding the land. I mean, I'm in favor. If someone wants to go on an Empire tirade, like, go for it. If you can do it, if you got the guys, if you got the mindset and you can do it, go for it. That should be all feasible.
Well, I think here's the problem with that. And like I said, being somebody who was in Ancient Exiles, I was making like 100 million ISK back in the day every week to 2 weeks, depending on what our PC schedule was. And that was just my court payout, and not including all the stuff I earned from PC. And so when I say like, 3, 4, 5 districts, I don't want to hold people back who want to conquer it. But at the same time, I think that was a different situation. So I think you have to look at the meta that was set up at that time and analyze it from within those perspectives. So you have a bunch of corps, back then, just say some names: Ancient Exiles, Nyan San, Outer Heaven, team players that had held a lot of land for a very, very long time. Red Star, Ill Omens, go even further back. Those corps had this huge backing. And so after leaving, when Anonymous finally cascaded and being an open player at that time, I had several corps approach me and say, hey man, we'll pay you this much per week. No, we can give you this much per week. And people were literally trying to bid for my ability to play for them. And at that point in time, when people were solely looking for ISK because it was so easy to cash farm, the huge majority of good players mostly went to 3 or 4 corps. And it was just because of how much ISK they got. To say that Ancient Exiles was this amazing happy home, I mean, I enjoyed my time there greatly. But there was people inside of Ancient Exiles that didn't like each other, and they were only there because of how much money they were making. So removing that and doing 1.2, I think, does push it to democratizing PC. And you actually have to, hold and maintain everything that you've taken. It's not like we can just take all these timers and stack them in weird places.
I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, just more tedious now, I would say. Nothing's really, the premise of Conquer. I mean, I've been right there with you. I did FA. We were getting 2.8 billion a month, in the whole DNS thing. That, I mean, the factor of that's the problem with the ISK faucet. I'm not, disagreeing with that. That was a problem. That was the only basic factor. That was the only imagination you were able to get from land incentive. But now that they're bringing in district credits, they're bringing in command points, I feel it's still going to happen. You're going to get that player that wants to go on a conquer. That's human nature right there. And, all that I see from this and from being in the think tank and everything for PC 2.0 is just making it more tedious. So it involves a lot more people and it involves more management. There wasn't a lot of management before, and that's the only real difference I see from what's about to happen now, like foreshadowing. I think the same thing is going to happen. If anything, it's going to get more people together because there's other incentives now besides just ISK. So I don't think it's going to change unless, you get that kind of shared kind of all, factor to which, I mean, everyone's going to go to the strongest corp. They're going to try to. Then you have people who set regulations and goals or, requirements. That's where that comes into play. So, I mean, I get the whole ringing aspect and people wanting to bid for you, but why shouldn't they? I mean, if someone wants to get something started, they're going to go for the most strongest people that they see either in battle or they hear about. They're going to go for you regardless, no matter, where you stand with it.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a couple of points I'd like to address. Not to measure it, but I think, I wish I still had the old spreadsheets from Ancient Exiles. Ancient Exiles, I think, was making 10 billion every 2 weeks. So we were literally reigning in ISK at that time, and you're right to some extent, but I think the tediousness is almost necessary. So
no, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying it's not going to change the overall concept.
It will to an extent, though, and here's the problem. Up to this point, and I know to some extent we see it in NF, but you see it extrapolated in other corps, is that in order to maintain that large amount of land, you have to have an active user base. And if people are just signing on for the big ticket items, like only signing on for PC, then you're not going to be racking in a bunch of points to be useful. So I think it's a good thing because it's going to start urging people to sign on more, so we're gonna have more people on. But also, corps that are smaller, let's say 30 to 40 diehard members, can now rack up all this CP, and then they can start doing raiding on these districts that these bigger corps are holding, and the bigger corps are gonna have to micromanage more. So regardless whether or not they can actually hold it, like in the current scenario, I don't think they'll be able to. I don't think it's a sustainable thing. And I know you would back me on this, Silly, and I know Kain does, and Anon Illuminati. Where as a corp, negative feedback is 100% behind bringing all these smaller corps into PC. Taking district and when we don't, hey, we just got this district, we're going to give it to another corp that can field 16 people or 12 people every single time, and here's your district. You now own a part of this game, regardless of whether or not it's this real thing. They now own something inside the game, and they have the ability to say, go to their friends and hey, I want you to start playing Dust 514. My corp just got a district. We actually own something inside this game. Get on there, and then they can start spreading that word. And I think that's, like I said, I think that's something that's been lacking in a lot of games, and how proud people can be for holding these districts. And now with these larger corps, they're going to have to micromanage more. It's going to start kind of eating away at them from the inside because they're having to sustain levels that they can't do. And I think the tediousness is necessary. I think any person who's grounded in the real world with, thinks about it for 2 seconds. If you own, 2,000 acres, let's say, of land, it takes a lot of work to maintain it. And I think that little bit needs to be brought in the game to make sure you can democratize this amazing, in my opinion, amazing in-game aspect to it.
That is a pretty well said piece, and one that I think if you go all the way back to some of our original episodes of Biomassed, which was coming online literally as the blue donut was peaking, and then the red wedding was happening, and then some other color things were thrown in there. But that's a great point. It's not so much about fending off the tyrant, so to speak, of the blue donut, the infamous Kain Spero / DNS Black. It was more about the way the mechanics laid out. It was too easy to do it. I don't mind if somebody does it, but it was just too easy to do it. I think is where a lot of us
I can agree with that.
Fell on that one. So since we've been on the air for a little bit, what I would like to do is kind of narrow this down a little bit more. If there's any sort of last minute pieces you guys want to bring up about the Warlords 1.2 or any other things that are humming with you on the forums, just we'll kind of run down the list. I'll start up there with Aiwha Bait, and we'll kind of go all the way down. And just literally, if there's something that's caught your eye on the forums or something you want to bring up or remind folks about the dev patch, we can just kick it around for like a minute, and then we'll kind of go through. And then I think after that, we're going to cycle into shout outs. So a little bit of a lightning round, so to speak. So Bait, we're going to start with you. Anything catching your eye on the forums or in the dev blogs or anything this week that you wanted to bring up?
Not particularly. I think this was touched on though in that bit that was just done. The commando getting the extra slot is going to be fantastic in my eyes, especially for somebody who runs AV. My Minotaur Commando shields are shit, and I'm not happy with it. So being able to get that, I think a third slot on the high will be quite nice.
No, I agree. I think for the Commando players, this is a pretty good run. Demens, what do you think, man? Anything else out there catching your eye?
No, I mean, I think it's complete. I'm going to be a little bit selfish here, but I think they need to go back and totally revise shields. I made a pretty in-depth post about shields and why people are having to dual tank and why I think Ratatatti's opinion on the EHP versus speed idea was completely skewed. So that's one thing that when I read through it, I wasn't expecting anything, but I saw it and I was like, oh.
Would you do me a favor and link that in the Mumble chat here so we can have that?
Sure thing.
And then just kind of an open one too, guys, for anybody that's a CPM2 candidate. Once you come on for your interview, if you've got like some really go-to posts that you want people to see, either your candidate thread or like, hey, here's 3 or 4 of my greatest hits kind of thing, and you want us to include that in your like your candidate interview, just as like, hey, links, choice links, back to the Dust forums or something like that. Feel free. We can. It'll take us a while to get them added in, but we can go back and get those in. But I would like you if you could link that into the Mumble chat. I'd appreciate it. Dystopia, how about you, man?
I really am kind of interested to see how the skin conversion is going to be, and how that's going to pan out, and how it's going to look as far as what a lot of suits that I have, how that's going to be applied. Is it going to be for, are my medium ones going to be for both medium frames or just one? Is it going to be assault? As far as what I'm seeing, it looks like it may just be, Minmatar assault, and there'd probably be one for a Logi as well. So, but also I'm kind of interested to see what that skin viewer is going to look like.
Yeah, that's definitely huge, having the skin viewer. I thought originally the idea behind this with just like the skins, that it was going to be more about the weight class. So like if you got a Galente medium frame, you could put it on any of the medium frame Galente suits. Hopefully, anyway. I hope it works that way.
The dev blog implies that it's going to be the frame size, not the role specific. So you should be good.
That's legit. Okay. All right. So Kain Spero, what do you got, man? Go ahead and tell us why you're getting trod upon, and the man's got his boot on your neck, and it's like dogs and cats living with each other. Since your mighty Threadnought, or would-be Threadnought got locked by CCP frame.
You know what? Honestly, the more I've thought about it, I'm kind of glad the thread is locked, because everything that could be said probably has been said, and I can actually get some sleep now rather than constantly poking the thread and face palming at certain responses.
You took the high road. I'm so disappointed in you. Okay. All right, Zell.
What are we doing?
Well, we were hoping you would give us the
Final
game
thoughts,
review
something?
of Dust, because we know you've
Game
never
review,
fucking played it
game review.
before.
I really think Dom needs to be deleted from the game. Domination just shouldn't exist. That's my experiences from
You
particularly
got
playing this
pwned,
week.
didn't you?
Somebody
That's where I got a lot
raised
of my
you.
kill assists.
But no, it's 50% of the game is you end up redlining the other team. The other 50% is the other team ends up redlining you. But the sum result of any Dom mode is about 15 minutes of the game are, please let it end so I can queue up again, because it's just not fun. it's just not fun. I don't know why it's here. That's dumb.
That's not that much more different than any game mode, depending on the matchmaking or who falls into the match.
It's so much dumb. Very particularly dumb.
I don't know. If you had to pin me down on one thing to totally get rid of, I would tell you it's ambush.
Oh man, no, man, chill.
Boo.
I mean, ambush isn't great, but it works so much better than dom.
It's a quick domination. It's literally.
I mean, I haven't seen acquisition at all this week. I don't queue for specific ones. I queue for everything.
You know why you don't see acquisition? Because
nobody plays
it. Playing it.
Yeah,
because it sucks.
But yeah, so I haven't seen it at all this week. I played a couple of when it came out and I liked it, but that's I guess how it is right now. But yeah, no, it's been all right. I'm annoyed by the constant ability of vehicles to just run away and rep up and come back and then kill you. But that's the usual thing.
Okay, all right.
Having a guy jump out of his tank and kill me, and then jump back in his tank,
and that is no different than any other game mode out there.
Well, no, yeah, this is just general feedback now. As I already said, Dom sucks, but these are my thoughts on the game as a whole as of this week.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm trying to get this stupid event done. I love this event. I should clarify. Mortar's Challenge was one of my favorites back in the day. And I forgot how much harder they made it to kill installations. But
yeah, I was about to say,
I'm almost done with that one.
I have seen a lot of people beefing about the kill assist and the installation kills.
Kill assist is really hard, and that's the one I'm worried I'm not going to get done. I'm actually almost done with installation kills. I'm at 19 out of 25. Because at the start of every match, I grab my forge gun, go to the nearest thing, and either take it out myself, or if someone else is already taking it out, I just time my shot, and take the last one, and move on.
Kill assist might actually be easier than people think if you just downgrade your light weapon to an advanced combat rifle.
I use a standard mass driver.
That wouldn't be bad, but
I mean, with a standard assault rifle or a standard assault scrambler rifle.
If you're in if you actually get a good team fight going, you could just lob some shots over that way. You can rack up a few kill assists here and there, but it's tough.
I found that like in the my Mimitar Apex suit, like the little assault combat rifle, the little standard level assault combat rifle, that is effectively like shooting a fully automatic BB gun at somebody.
Yeah.
So and there's been more than one case where I've totally got the drop on people and emptied an entire magazine and couldn't kill them because they had too much HP.
Yeah.
Great for getting kill assists.
I had on my fit and I murdered it. I took it off the fit. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I had a standard MagSec SMG. And I remember there was one point where someone was standing still, not looking at me. I was shooting at them for like 2 full seconds, unloaded the entire clip into their head, and then they turned around and killed me.
Yeah, I really wish they'd go through and do a serious pass on SMGs. I mean, I really want to like the MagSec, but I can't.
I just, you know what? I went back to the Mimitar one. It's done me well over the years. It's okay.
It works. Yeah, no, you're right, man.
But yeah, no, I couldn't get the MagSec to work for me well this week at all.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest with you. Like if you think about it, if the Breach SMG is still working dramatically better in terms of game performance than the MagSec, the MagSec, if anything, they should have eliminated the spool time on it, cut the range down a little bit, and made it a little bit better than the Breach SMG in terms of its game performance, and then called it good. Okay. Silver Strike, what about you, man? Anything catch your eye on the forums or in game this week?
Well, I was really hoping to follow up Soraya because I just get to make myself look better. But
this is true, by the way.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on the squad aspect. We didn't really talk about it too much. The 4-man fire teams, 8-man squads, 16-man platoons. Despite all the pleading on the forums, crying, whatever you want to call it, there's various aspects to it. But I got the chat thing talking in my ear because I haven't figured out how to turn that off. They did not decide to put the platoons in faction warfare, which a lot of people were pushing for. So just curious to see how that plays out. Maybe they'll change it up later, but for now it's sitting as that. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really good catch, by the way, Silver. We probably should have touched on that a little bit, but we had a lot of what I like to refer to as hamlets going on, as is what happens when you have a lot of CPM2 candidates in the room. So that would be my shout out to the soliloquy, by the way. So I do think that's a great point you bring up in terms of that, Silver. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think everybody's inclination is that they, or every indication that Rattati has given is that they intend to or plan on adding platoons into FAC War later, but they're just basically doing a phased approach. Is that accurate, or have they not actually laid that out?
They haven't lit. As far as I can tell, that hasn't been laid out. There is still very much a divide on protecting solo players within faction who decide to queue into faction warfare. I think from my understanding, is that an outcome where a 16-man grouping goes against 16 randoms is unacceptable, and if there's any possibility for it to happen, then there needs to not be 16-man groupings. At least one perspective that I've heard on the issue.
I think it's safe to say that any person who's running solo in Dust is in for a rude awakening in terms of just overall gameplay. You're going to get wrecked by teams.
Well, that's the other thing that's happening with this.
That's a real problem.
I wouldn't say it's team play, bro. I can't get mad at team play.
Most of your players most of the new players you're going to experience coming into the game, and let's be honest, most of the people playing in FPS period are going to be solo players, because
then that's why you have public match mode.
A certain amount of heavy investment in the game to want to be in a corp, forming teams, etc. And the reality is the mass base of your game and the people, the mass percentage of the people who pay for said game and keep said game servers running are going to be solo players. And to build a game that heavily favors being grouped up in the largest possible group isn't going to last long.
So one game mode out of 5 instant deploy game modes is heavily favoring. Okay.
Correct.
No, but I mean, even if you look at the problem with Kain's proposal is that even if you look at 4 4-man squads or an 8-man and 2 4-mans or something, if you're putting disjointed sets of people, even if they're not solo players, versus a 16-man team, you already know the outcome of that battle, because the 2 4-mans and an 8-man are not going to beat the 16-man.
Incorrect. I've been the 6-man team going up against Q-Syncs. I even have photos, actually, that I could post an imager of a random set of squads going up against the State Task Force Q-Sync and winning. Actually redlining them, in fact.
I will say, personally, I can attest to it. Really, all you really need at the end of this is 2 people. I ran a squad with just myself and Heavy, and we fucking wreck shop on pubs or factionals. It just depends on the player. It comes down to, honestly.
The thing is, you're going to have some teams that are 16-man groupings that are absolutely going to be dominant. You're going to have some teams that are 16-man groupings that are going to be freaking terrible, just like any other game mode, And you're going to have some squads that are 4-man groupings that are going to be absolutely amazing. But the thing is, one of the things that's happening in this patch that kind of gets overlooked is that you've got your pub squad size is being reduced. So that means, pub skirmish, pub acquisition, pub domination, and pub ambush are all actually having squad size reduction. And actually, you have the matchmaker there to protect solo players and to protect these new players.
Pubs will probably be much, much better after 1.2. I'm looking forward to it. But Kain, to be honest, I just think you're whining because you need a reason to whine, because they're already making team deploy in FAC War 50% easier than it was before.
Exactly.
Let me get this.
It's already easier, and you can't just say, "Thank you, that's wonderful." You have to find a new reason to whine. That's what I'm getting at.
If I cut half your hair, would you be cool with that?
So let me interject here.
What happened?
Kain has time to drink take his medicine with his teapot. The one thing Yeah. So, like, the one thing that I think a lot of people overlook is that this game does, yes, like I was saying, PC is the end game. But a lot of people don't treat PC necessarily as the end game because they might just not be interested in holding the districts. But they say love the Caldari state or they love the Minmatar. You know, like when I first started playing the game, you know, I sat there and I read through every single bio for each race and, you know, the subgenres for each. And I chose Galente because, you know, it hit more home to me than anything else. I don't play that way, but that's, you know, a different story. However, I think providing the ability to team deploy into faction warfare, faction warfare is an in-game, you know, an in-game mode. It's harder. It's not meant for single player at all. And I think if they start making smart decisions, that whole, you know, tinfoilery as far as, well, we can't do like 7-man. Well, what happens if there's a 7-man and a 6-man and then, you know, an 8-man and then like a 16-man who's going to get in? It just won't happen. You know, that can be done by regulating. You have to have at least 4 people to queue. And it only accepts 4, 8, 12, and 16-man blocks. As well, the one thing that's really hard to do, especially when you're looking at, say, State Task Force or Chosen, Matari, and all these different groups that are specifically there to get people into their own faction warfare side, these groups have a hard time controlling their members. And if you ever go in there, and I like to occasionally go in there and play for Caldari, specifically State Task Force, but when you go in there, you know, they're sitting there giving directions as if it was a PC, but whether it happens or not, it can sometimes be a roll of the dice. And if you have like a 6 or an 8-man squad that's legitimate and good, then that 8-man squad can be worth way more than that 2v1 that they're offering. But, you know, I right now play faction warfare because I'm just sick and tired of the silly matchmaking system that we have and how it's been working out.
Look, the other thing is, yes, it makes it easier for me to run a faction warfare sync, but what it doesn't make it easier for is the random player that says, hey, I want to try more organized gameplay. Oh, let me create a platoon. Let me gather 16 people in said platoon. Let me now deploy to faction warfare. Now that's still going to be an impossibility. It's still going to be, yeah, they can do 8 people, which is definitely, it's an improvement, but that actual full team deploy that can then counter, you know, Chosen Matari, State Task Force, Lucent Echelon, Luxiferian's Elite, Pi Ground Control, and the numerous other channels that are out there that already do syncing through voice, those are going to continue to exist. The problem is the quality of matches that they face isn't going to be increasing. It'll be increasing somewhat, but it won't be increasing to the extent that it could if the ability to deploy as a team was democratized and open up to the entire community rather than being kept hidden behind this little curtain that is, you know, done through voice syncing and all this other stuff. I mean, many people don't even know that team deploy is even a thing that exists. They just see it as face value, and there's no explanation of that mechanic at all. You'd only find that out via reading the forums or word of mouth. To me, it seems that it needs to be something that's codified. That way, other players can engage in the practice and then actually go through and challenge these other syncs that are out there. I think that's also a good way for people to socialize together. And, you know, to me, social is a huge hook and dust. And by getting larger groups of people together in an instantaneous fashion, you have these social bonds able to grow in a more strong manner over time.
Last point on this one. I am a fan of having platoon deploy in faction warfare as a routine thing. And 2 things. One, unless they're dramatically changing the frequency with which you can execute a PC, which I don't think they are, it's a great way for corps to actually get, quote unquote, get good, or at least practice on certain things that would lead them to officially, down the road being more competitive in PC. What it would also do, I can just imagine having the squad finder icon, and you click on like looking at platoons. I'll guarantee you there'll be groups of 10, 12, maybe not 16, but you'll have groups of like more than 8 that'll be rolling in those public platoons, basically, that'll be diving into stuff left and right. And not to say, not even talking about some of the more semi-organized faction warfare channels. So glad it's there, but I really think they kind of did a half measure on this one. So real quick, Silly, anything that caught your eye this week?
Honestly, I was gonna talk about the whole squad situation, but I was gonna talk about the whole squad situation, but the only thing that I would say past this point is two things. Let's focus on vehicles from here on out. See if we can get those guys out of the rut that they've been put in for so long, and really go for that. And to kind of just, I guess, finish on that statement with Kain, and everybody's been talking about team to play. I'm going to hold it with the same weight that they are handling trading with right now, which is you might as well just open it up. You know what I mean? Instead of being hesitant and unlocking this here and unlocking this there, just do it, because I just feel like we're going to come back to this situation and realize that it's not bad to have a platoon in the factional warfare, because it goes down to that anyway. It's like pseudo PCs. Every time I've seen factional warfare, it's a pseudo PC. It's basically people practicing doing PC type style fighting, and it's just on factional. And I wouldn't say that he's whining, because honestly they should have did it. They really should have, because it's just, when I look at it, it's like, dude, why not just unlock it as a 16 and an 8? It's going to happen anyway. They're either going to Q-sync 2 18-man squads. Why not just give them a whole platoon? Why go halfway and not go all the way? It's like I said, it is a pseudo PC. Like, that's basically what they do. I've never seen, I've tried to do solo factional warfare, and it really just doesn't cut the cake as well as other ones do. And I don't think it's going to break matchmaking or anything. I don't think it's going to break it, because I saw one person write on Kane's thread that if all 16 people are queuing up, no one's going to be able to fight each other or something like that. Well, of course they won't if they're all queuing up for Caldari, you know what I mean? But there's 4 factions. So I think if anything, it'll make more battles happen. You know what I mean? Like, there's just more to go by. And I'm also in favor of the 4-man squad. I was kind of against it at first until it was just a simple thing to just go by for pub matches. It's easier to queue a 4-man team for a 16-man match than a 6-man squad for a 16-man match. It's simple right down to that. And I'm just interested to see where it's going to go, honestly, like with everything.
All right. Well, I think I'll just quick round out before we get into any shout outs. These are all good points, by the way. Great job by Silver bringing up the squad piece, which we've bandied about a lot on this show, but I have noticed a distinct uptick in a lot of folks, and I attribute this to it is time for video game politician season to kick into high gear. A lot of much more meaningful or meaty, meaningful is maybe a stretch, but meaty and logical threads about things in game, mostly started by CPM2 candidates, which is actually kind of cool, because what you do is not only do you get to have a picture of what is somebody personally interested in, maybe helping guide a discussion on, or what their position is, but you generally tend to find the people that will engage you in logical and fun conversation, not just like a trollathon like you occasionally get on the Dust forums. So like a lot of stuff on, really back to the basics vanilla, like talking about weapon rebalance, like light weapon rebalance, and X, Y, and Z, that kind of stuff, which I find very interesting, and it's one of those that'll never really be done. But there's a lot of good threads out there that are relatively small that are poking up here and there. Again, a lot of them started by CPM2 candidates that are trying to put their chops out there about what they're interested in, or kind of what their forum foo is. But it's pretty cool, because there's a lot of good conversations that you can have if you're willing to kind of engage that way. So real quick, guys, we're going to go ahead and bring this one to a close. We're going to hit shout outs super fast. We're going to start with Bait, work our way down, and then we are going to call it a night. So Bait, what do you got, brother? Any shout outs?
I do actually have a few. I'd like to give a shout out to my corporation, Demonic Cowboys. Love running with y'all. It's always been a pleasure. Shout out to the women's national soccer team. That'd be the US one. America for the win. And there was a win tonight in the World Cup. The US came out on top 5-2 over Japan. We are the crown winners of the fucking world in soccer.
Oh, that's legit.
And that'd be all.
All right, Demens.
I'd like to shout out to Aries himself. Please come back to Dust. I miss you. All the negative feedback and all the people I play the game with. Also the listeners. Thank you for making this game what it is. Really appreciate it. And, keep on playing Dust.
All right.
So
Dystopia?
I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
I'm gonna crash this because I've got a match queuing up, so I want to make sure I get my shout out in first. So I'm giving my shout out to Terminator Genesis, which isn't for continuing to remind people in a thinly veiled fashion that Google will almost certainly be the bringer of the apocalypse.
All right. Excellent. Useful as always. Dystopia.
Shout out to my alliance, the Negative Feedback Alliance, and current CPMs, and candidates running for CPM 2.
Alrighty. Kain.
So I'd like to give a shout out to Negative Feedback, and also want to give out a shout to a CCP Frame for cross-posting the Warlords patch notes to the e-forms to let them know that yes, we are here, we still exist, and that you can't completely ignore us.
Here.
Oh, goodness. All right. Okay. Zell, anything? Oh, wait. No, you already butted in and did your shout out. My bad. Pokey.
Shout out to Demens and Silly for coming on and doing their interview. It was great to hear from you guys firsthand. Demens, I've never spoken to you before, but it was good to get your insight on things, so thanks for coming. And we'll continue to keep doing this in the next few weeks.
Okie dokie. Silver Strike.
Shout out to myself. It's feeling like one of those kind of nights. Anyways, check out my YouTube channel, Silverwind444 for dust stuff. And I just hope I can come back on the show sometime, hopefully when the CPM stuff quiets down and I can get in a little more on some discussions on non-CPM affairs, etc., etc. And that's it.
Okay. All right, man. And Silver Strike. Or correction. We just did Silver. All right, Silly. Sorry, I'm juggling my mumbles.
There's a glitch in the Matrix.
Shout out to Negative Feedback, my corp. Shout out to Negative Feedback, the Alliance, and everybody in it. Shout out to all my lodges, and shout out to anyone who thinks they are brave enough to jump into PC because the war games have begun.
Okay. On that note, Pokey, do me a favor. Take a message. We need to have more Outer Haven people in here to counterbalance the negative feedback that's in the room.
I'll let Zarya know.
Thank you. Okay. All right. And I don't really have a whole lot of shout outs out there this week. I am literally in the throes of moving. All my stuff's packed. And I'm going to be moving from the Pacific Northwest to the southeast of the United States. So I've got one more show in me. Then I'll be down for about a month. So I will be on next week, and we're going to be doing, I think, Pokey and Zarya's CPM2 interviews. So it should be pretty fun. And that's about it. And I really want to give a quick high five to Demens and Silver Strike for kind of being the new folks on the show. Really do appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming on and listening to us. And Dystopia, we will get you whenever you need. Like, we can either do it maybe next week or week after. Bait is going to be taking over most of the interview duties while I am gone. So other than that, we are still taking requests for folks to come on and hop in and be part of the show, so to speak, particularly if you're a CPM2 candidate. So on that note, I have got to head out, and I will well, correction, I am totally stumbling right here. I got about 17 things on my computer going on right now. So we're going to go ahead and land the plane like I usually say.